Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Dr. Gillian Tabor. I'm a chartered physiotherapist and I specialise in the rehabilitation and treatment of horses. And in this video, I want to talk to you about how to change your horse's posture. We're going to talk about why we should do it and my framework for successfully achieving this. So the first question is, what is posture? Now, broadly speaking, it's the way in which the horse holds and positions their body when they are standing and then also when they're moving during gait. It has been defined in a few ways, but it's basically a state of musculoskeletal balance. And the idea is that the good posture will protect the supporting structures of the body against injury or progressive deformity. Now, in relation to humans, there is a body of evidence which suggests that posture is not always related to pain or pathology. However, in the horse, I think we have to look at it and say that the horizontal spine is perhaps different to the human. And the fact that our horses are required to carry a load on their back means to me that it is far more important. And when we think about posture, we are thinking about the fact that it is actually different to conformation, because in the mature horse, conformation related to the size and the shape of bones, for instance, and the joint angles, some of them, it's not alterable. And the posture that we see is actually informed by the internal state of the musculoskeletal system, and it is changeable in the short and the long term with both training and, unfortunately, with pathology. So there is a difference between the actual conformation of the horse and the acquired posture. And the posture that the horse adopts is therefore due to the conformation, but stresses as well, such as training methods, the environment, injuries, types of tack, and of course, foot balance, and as a result of things like genetics and age. And a physio colleague of mine states that the horse's body is a map of the history of his movement patterns, and we just need to learn how to read the map. So why is posture important? Well, if we are going to ride our horse, the horse has to manage the loads that are placed upon its back. And I actually think it's actually non-negotiable that it's our job to prepare the horse to have the capacity to tolerate that load. Because to be quite honest, the horse is usually fine without us. The posture of the horse is the way that we can assume the horse is in the optimal state to carry us. And it's not a binary good or bad posture, because this is too reductionist, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But if we have a look at this horse on the left, actually this is a horse, the photograph was taken a couple of days following spinal surgery. Yes, it did have kissing spines and it had surgery. And we can see that the posture of the horse adopted doesn't really look like it is in the right shape or form to actually be able to carry us as a rider. And if we were to sit on that horse, it would potentially carry through to a posture that isn't really conducive of being able to manage the load placed on its back. And then this might perpetuate the cycle of back pain, pathology, and then unfortunately pain for the horse. And then pain for the horse, we then get into the state of the horse actually trying to tell us that it's in pain. They might display behaviours that are what we call conflict behaviours, be that, slight change in facial expressions, or all the way through to saying, no, don't get on me. But ultimately, it is our duty to make sure that our horse is prepared to carry us on their backs. Now, let's just have a think about this relationship between posture and function. I have tried to create a diagram that represents my thoughts on it. So we've got a quadrant graph here. On the bottom left, our rocking horse represents the horse that has a suboptimal posture and suboptimal function. Now, remember I said that neither of these are sort of a binary decision. There is a continuum, there's a scale between suboptimal and optimal, and we have to sort of take that into account. But my quadrant diagram here is just an attempt to represent it. My rocking horse might be a lame horse. It might be a horse that's in pain. It might be a horse that really isn't managing to do the job that we want it to do. However, there are horses out there that actually do have what we would call a not very good posture, but are functioning quite well. Those are on the top left. And then on the bottom right, we've got those that have pretty poor function. They're not able to carry out the job or the role that we have for them, but they look on the outside to have optimal posture. And then on the top right, we have that sort of mythical unicorn, the horse that looks to have optimal posture, and actually it does have optimal function. So in general, I think we're trying to take our horses from the bottom left to the bottom right. Oh no, bottom left to the top right, from the rocking horse to the unicorn. Let's think about what influences posture, because there are so many factors, both physical and mental or sort of emotional on the horse. Firstly, pain. It's a major influence of posture, and it must be addressed and managed before being able to influence posture successfully. It might be the case that we don't reduce it completely, but at least we have to acknowledge it, and then we have to do something about it. And then there is the mental, emotional aspect that influences posture, and these cannot be underestimated. So stresses placed on the horse resulting in over or either under arousal can alter the posture and challenge the ability of us to be able to influence it. We have the neurological system of the horse as well that sits alongside the musculoskeletal system, the MSK system, and these have to work, or we have to work with them in parallel to try and affect the posture. So I'm not saying that it is really simple to affect the posture. We need to take all these considerations and factors into account, but we need to acknowledge what there is and what we can change and why we might need to change it. So here I present my framework for changing posture. I'm going to start on the left. We're going to talk about pain and management of pain. We're going to talk about movement and mobility, and then finally strength and stability. So pain, it is really, really tricky. We're never going to be able to say that a horse is not in pain. However, what we can do is we can address what we see. We need to acknowledge that there are many factors that influence pain, be it the feet, the teeth, saddle, bridle, a poor rider, underlying orthopedic pathology, neurological pathology, lots and lots of reasons, but we need to deal with it. And there are many ways that we can deal with it, be it medications from the vet, be it surgery, be it manual therapy by a therapist, or electrotherapy. And in fact, exercise will influence pain as well. So we mustn't sort of not take that into account as well. But again, I'm repeating myself, we need to consider the whole horse. We cannot just address posture of the back if there are other factors going on the horse that are influencing or sort of overriding the ability to actually change that posture. So you must take that into account. Now, that was the first stage of the framework, but let's talk about the next stages of the framework. This is identifying your starting posture and looking to see what needs to be changed. And this is very, very individual for the horse, because all horses, like all people, have different postures because of the factors such as conformation, genetics, training, all of that. And how we approach them, they need differences to apply to that individual horse. I've been involved in research where we are trying to classify posture types, or at least be able to quantify them so that we can then look to see what we've changed with our interventions. And it is actually quite challenging, but I will continue down that road until hopefully I'm successful in at least creating some way of mapping the horse's body that we can then document our sort of effects of intervention. But some examples at the top there, we've got a horse that might be sway backed and we need to lift the back. We've got horses that are sort of herring gutted, and we've got horses that are a combination of both. And then to return to the picture of the horse that I showed you earlier, this horse will need a very different intervention and rehab to this particular horse, another horse that has undergone kissing spine surgery. So we need to take those factors into account. So at the bottom of the pyramid, the starting of this is all about the, setting the scene for being able to have a change. And I want to talk to you just for a moment about the performance level and the amount of stress. So this inverted U curve that we've got here, if we are training our horse in a specific way, we're expecting them to learn, we're expecting them to have adaptation in their musculoskeletal system and their neurological system. And this only happens if we start in the right place. And just as an example of words, I'm not trained as a coach. I teach a little bit of behavior, but I want you to sort of identify some of these words that you need to use as a starting point. We can't have a horse that's too relaxed, but we can't have a horse that's over aroused or stressed. We need to have a calm horse that's focused on what we're doing with them. And it may mean that the start of your relationship building with your horse is all about thinking about this as a factor before you then go and influence the sort of physicality of the horse. So just have a think. The middle pictures there are my young horse, the top with him standing in a fairly neutral position with his head and neck, and then literally 2 seconds later, Cat jumps out of the hedge and his head goes really high. So yeah, just I wanted to make a point of thinking about arousal levels and the behavior, so slightly separately, but obviously it can't be separated from addressing the physicality of the horse. Then what do we do next? We need to change their movement somehow. Now, how you do that, I'm not going into that in this in this presentation, but my main point here is to consider, can your horse change into the posture that you want them to? Have they got the available range of motion? Are they able to lift their back, or are they restricted in any way? Have they got the ability to bring the leg underneath their body, or again, is there limited range of motion? And there may be horses that you've got that are hypermobile, have too much movement, and we need to control that, and we need to limit the amount of movement. So we need to assess each horse, and again, they're individuals, but we need to make sure they can actually achieve what we're trying to obtain from them. If they can't, it may be that you need some help, be it veterinary intervention, or it might mean your physio, chiro, that kind of person might come in and help you to judge whether or not your horse can achieve the posture that you are after asking them for. Then when we're sure we've got that mobility, we can then train them through those movements. And then the next stage of our training is to think about strength and stability. Core stability for me is a little bit reductionist. I want to think about the interaction between the neurological and the muscle system of the horse, so that's neuromotor control. I want to think about the quality of movement, not just about the core, but about the interaction with the limbs to the trunk, and then obviously the head and neck. And then once we've gained a quality of motion, we're going to practice it, and then we want to strengthen it. And that is not just strengthening the muscles, but it's also strengthening those neurological pathways for it to become a learned movement pattern, or perhaps, as you've heard it before, as neuromotor control. And then with muscle, we need to think about, can it sustain that position? Does it have endurance? And can it use its strength to develop power? And these features are then important if we want to carry on and train our horses for any sort of sporting disciplines, or even if we want to increase the duration of hacks, trail rides that we take it out on. We've got to consider, are they strong enough to do that? We need to recognize the signs when our horses are getting tired, be it sort of fatigue, muscle weakness, or be it behavioral change. There are signs that we need to acknowledge. And then the sort of other consideration is when we come to our sort of sporting disciplines, we need to think about skills training as well. Have we practiced the movements that we need them to do, and are they able to do them with a quality of motion? And then just as part of this, we need to think about proprioceptive training. We need to think about training our horses on the different surfaces. So we've got a different neurological input to them, so that then they are able to make the most of that input, that sensory input, to fire up muscle patterns, to allow them to work on different surfaces. And then, of course, we need to think about other factors such as hills and slopes, and the demands that we place on our horse. That that cannot be underestimated. So going back to my framework, just as a summary, we need to address the pain, or at least acknowledge it and then manage it. We need to think about the movement available to us, how much mobility they have through their range. Do they have the ability to achieve the postures that we are trying to? If not, then we need to address that. Then once we've done that, we're then going to move on to the strength and the stability. So I hope you enjoyed that short presentation with regards to my framework for changing posture. If you want to contact me, you can do via Instagram. I'm at Dr. Gillian Tabor Physio. I'm on Facebook, Gillian Tabor Equine Physio and Rehab, or you can get in touch with me through my website. And on my website as well, I've got links to some online courses that go into some of the details of how you can actually change the posture, the nuts and bolts of ideas to do with training. And I always welcome any discussion or any comments. Please do get in touch.